The shaky heart of America. Is the central U.S. overdue for a major earthquake? When you think of earthquake-prone regions, places like California, Japan, or Chile likely come to mind, lands where tectonic plates collide with dramatic consequences. But what if I told you that the central United States, far from any plate boundary, experiences hundreds of tremors each year, hinting at the potential for a devastating quake? The new Madrid Seismic Zone, NMSZ, stretching across parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Illinois, is a surprising hotspot of seismic activity in America's heartland. Is this region overdue for a large, damaging earthquake? And what would happen if it struck? To answer these questions, we need to explore the geology, history, and vulnerabilities of this unexpected seismic zone, a geological anomaly in America's core. The United States is often associated with its coastal earthquake zones, particularly California's San Andreas Fault. Yet, beneath the flat plains, rolling hills, and muddy rivers of the central U.S., the Earth is far from still. The NMSZ, named after the town of New Madrid, Missouri, is a network of ancient faults buried deep within the North American plate. Unlike coastal regions where tectonic plates grind against each other, the central U.S. lies in the stable interior of a plate, making its seismic activity a geological puzzle. Geographically, the NMSZ spans a region along the Mississippi River, covering parts of southeastern Missouri, northeastern Arkansas, western Tennessee, western Kentucky, and southern Illinois. This area, known for its fertile farmlands and historic river towns, seems an unlikely candidate for earthquakes. The landscape varies from the low, swampy floodplains of the Mississippi to the gentle hills of the Ozarks, a stark contrast to the rugged mountains of typical seismic zones. Yet, this diversity reflects a complex geological history that sets the stage for unexpected tremors. Hundreds of millions of years ago, the central U.S. was shaped by tectonic forces that left lasting scars. During the formation of the supercontinent Pangaea, around 300 million years ago, massive collisions created deep fault lines in the Earth's crust. Later, about 750 million years ago, a failed rift, known as the Reelfoot Rift, attempted to split the continent, leaving a weakened zone beneath the Mississippi Valley. These ancient faults, though no longer active in terms of plate movement, remain zones of weakness today. Unlike plate boundary earthquakes, which result from direct tectonic collisions, the NMSZ's activity is driven by intraplate stresses. Forces from the spreading mid-Atlantic ridge to the east and the compression along the Pacific plate to the west transmit subtle pressures across the North American plate. These stresses accumulate along the buried faults of the NMSZ, occasionally causing them to slip and release energy as earthquakes. Think of the crust as an old weathered bridge, stable but prone to creaking under strain, with cracks that can suddenly shift. The NMSZ's earthquakes are typically shallow, occurring at depths of 5 to 15 kilometers. This shallow nature amplifies their impact as seismic waves travel a short distance to the surface, causing stronger shaking. The region's soft, water-saturated soils, common along the Mississippi River, further intensify ground motion, making even moderate quakes feel more destructive. This geological setup explains why the central U.S., despite its stable location, is far from seismically inert, a history of surprising quakes. The idea of earthquakes in the central U.S. might seem far-fetched, but the region's seismic history tells a different story. While modern instruments provide precise data, Historical accounts reveal a pattern of significant quakes that have rattled the Heartland for centuries. The NMSZ's most infamous event occurred during the winter of 1811-1812, when a series of powerful earthquakes struck, forever etching New Madrid into seismic lore. The 1811-1812 New Madrid earthquakes, estimated at magnitudes 7.5 to 8.0, were among the strongest in U.S. history. Beginning on December 16, 1811, the first quake shook the region so violently that it reportedly rang church bells in Boston, over 1,600 kilometers away. Two more major quakes followed on January 23 and February 7, 1812, along with thousands of aftershocks. Eyewitness accounts describe surreal scenes: the Mississippi River flowing backward temporarily, massive landslides, and fissures opening in the ground. Entire forests were toppled, and new lakes, like Reelfoot Lake in Tennessee, formed from subsided land. Damage was limited due to the sparse population, but the quakes were felt across much of the eastern U.S., from New Orleans to Montreal. Earlier records are scarce, but Native American oral traditions suggest seismic activity in the region long before European settlement. Archaeological evidence indicates that major quakes occurred around 1450, 900, and 300 CE, suggesting a recurrence interval of roughly 500 years for large events. More recent quakes, though smaller, reinforce the NMSZ's activity. The 1843 Marktree, Arkansas earthquake, magnitude 6.3, caused significant damage, while the 1895 Charleston, Missouri quake, magnitude 6.6, toppled chimneys and cracked walls. In 1968, a magnitude 5.5 quake near Dale, Illinois, rattled the region, damaging buildings and reminding residents of the ever-present risk. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, the NMSZ experiences about 200 earthquakes annually, most too small to be felt. Only 10 to 20 are noticeable, typically with magnitudes below 3.0. However, these minor tremors are a constant reminder of the fault's activity. The 2008 magnitude 5.2 quake in Mount Carmel, Illinois, and the 2011 magnitude 4.0 quake in Arkansas were felt widely, causing minor damage like cracked plaster and fallen shelves. These events highlight the NMSZ's potential to disrupt modern life, even with moderate quakes. Is the central U.S. overdue for a big one? The NMSZ's consistent low-level activity raises a critical question. Is the central U.S. overdue for a major earthquake? Seismologists approach this question with caution, as overdue doesn't imply a predictable schedule. Instead, it reflects statistical probability based on fault stress and historical patterns. The 1811-1812 quakes released significant energy, but centuries of stress have likely accumulated since, increasing the likelihood of another large event. The USGS estimates a 25–40% chance of a magnitude 6.0 or greater earthquake in the NMSZ within the next 50 years, with a 7–10% chance of a magnitude 7.0 or higher. While these odds are lower than in California, the potential impact is far greater due to the region's vulnerabilities. Unlike plate boundary quakes, which occur frequently and release stress incrementally, intraplate quakes, like those in the NMSZ, are rare, but can be catastrophic when they strike. The long recurrence interval, roughly 500 years, suggests that stress may be nearing a critical point, especially since the last major event was over 200 years ago. The primary concern isn't a mega-quake, like California's feared big one, magnitude 8.0 plus. Instead, a magnitude 6.0 to 7.0 quake in a populated area could cause significant damage. The central U.S. is ill-prepared for seismic events, with several key vulnerabilities. Building codes. Unlike California, where strict seismic standards govern construction, most buildings in the NMSZ were built without earthquake resistance in mind. Historic brick structures, common in cities like Memphis and St. Louis, are particularly vulnerable to collapse. Even modern buildings often lack retrofitting, increasing the risk of structural failure. Soft soils. The Mississippi Valley's loose water-saturated soils amplify seismic waves, causing intense shaking and liquefaction where the ground behaves like a liquid. This phenomenon, observed in 1811 to 1812, can destabilize buildings, bridges, and pipelines. Infrastructure. The region's aging infrastructure, bridges, highways, and levees, is not designed for significant shaking. A quake could disrupt transportation, flood control, and utilities, isolating communities and hampering recovery. Memphis, a major shipping hub, is particularly at risk. Nuclear facilities. Several nuclear power plants, such as the Callaway Plant in Missouri, operate near the NMSZ. Built decades ago, these facilities were designed for lower seismic risks than modern standards require. A moderate quake could challenge their safety systems, raising concerns about potential leaks or shutdowns. Population density. Cities like Memphis, population approximately 630,000, St. Louis, 300,000, and Little Rock, 200,000, lie near the NMSZ. A quake striking during the day could injure thousands, especially in schools, offices, or public spaces not built for seismic safety. The cumulative effect of earthquake swarms, multiple small quakes over days or weeks, adds another layer of risk. Continuous shaking can weaken structures, trigger panic, and strain emergency services, amplifying the impact. A magnitude 6.5 quake in Memphis, for example, caused billions in damages, disrupts supply chains, and displaced thousands, with effects felt as far as Chicago or Atlanta. Imagining the impact of a major NMSZ earthquake. What would a magnitude 7.0 earthquake in the NMSZ look like? Picture a bustling Memphis evening with families at home and Beale Street alive with music. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently for 30 seconds. Unreinforced brick homes and buildings collapse, chimneys topple, and high-rises sway dangerously. Liquefaction causes roads to crack and buildings to sink, while bridges over the Mississippi buckle, halting river traffic. Power lines fall, sparking fires, and gas leaks ignite secondary explosions. In rural areas, farmhouses crumble and levees fail, flooding lowlands. Emergency services are overwhelmed as hospitals, themselves damaged, struggle to treat thousands of injuries. Major highways like I-55 and I-40 are impassable, delaying aid. Power outages darken the region, and water contamination forces reliance on bottled water. The economic toll reaches tens of billions, with Memphis's port operations, critical for global trade, disrupted for months. Rural communities, often overlooked, face long recovery times due to limited resources. The human impact would be profound. Schools and workplaces, unprepared for quakes, could see significant casualties. Historic neighborhoods, cherished for their charm, might be reduced to rubble. The psychological trauma of a rare event in an unprepared region could linger for years, reshaping community resilience. A quake's reach would extend beyond the NMSZ, with shaking felt in Chicago, Nashville, and Atlanta, potentially damaging older structures far from the epicenter. Preparing for the inevitable. While the NMSZ's risk is lower than California's, Its potential impact demands preparation. Strengthening building codes, retrofitting critical infrastructure, and raising public awareness are essential. Schools and businesses should conduct earthquake drills, and households should secure heavy objects and maintain emergency kits. Nuclear plants need updated seismic assessments to ensure safety. Community planning, including evacuation routes and regional coordination, can mitigate chaos post-quake. The central U.S. is more seismically active than its tranquil reputation suggests. While not as prone to quakes as Japan or Chile, its lack of preparedness amplifies the risk of a moderate event. The NMSZ's ancient faults, stressed by distant tectonic forces, are a reminder that even stable regions can shake. A major quake is not a question of if, but when and where it strikes will determine its toll. Protecting your digital footprint. Just as the NMSZ's hidden faults remind us to prepare for unseen risks, managing your digital presence is crucial. Data brokers collect and sell personal information without consent, exposing you to privacy threats. Services like Delete Me can remove your data from thousands of websites, safeguarding your identity. Visit joindme.com or scan the QR code if available to protect your digital boundaries. The new Madrid Seismic Zone, tucked in America's heartland, challenges our assumptions about earthquake risk. Its ancient faults, shallow quakes, and unprepared infrastructure make it a sleeping giant. From the catastrophic 1811 to 1812 quakes to modern tremors, the NMSZ's history warns of its potential. A magnitude 6.0 to 7.0 quake could disrupt millions of lives, highlighting the need for preparedness. Next time you cross the Mississippi or visit Memphis, remember, the ground beneath is not as still as it seems. What other hidden risks shape our world? Share your thoughts.